Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so today we're going to do a lesson on how to compare and order real numbers. And real numbers are the ones that you're probably most used to working with. Imaginary numbers are something that exists, and that happens when we take the square root of a negative. We're going to ignore those for today. We're going to focus on just the real numbers here. So to compare and order real numbers, it may help to convert them all into decimals first. You may find it easier to use a number line too when you're trying to put them in order. So let's take a look at this expression here. We have to decide if these two terms are greater than, less than, or equal to each other. And so I'm going to show you the way I do it. With these guys, I just convert them into decimals and then I compare. So what I do is I write the original number, and in this case that's 2/17, or 2 over 17. I'm going to figure out what that is in a decimal, and then same with the percentage here. I have 21 and 8/10%, or 21.8%. Alright, so now I've got to use a calculator to figure this out, but I should recognize that fractions are just the same as division. This is just like saying 2 divided by 17. And so if I grab my calculator here, there we go, bring back up our screen, and there we go. So if I'm using my calculator here and I do 2 divided by 17, I see I get this really long decimal. But I probably don't need that many decimal points to compare. In fact, what I think I'll probably need is 3 or 4. So I'm going to do 3 to be safe. So see that the first two, I've got my 0.11. And then when I look back at this calculator, I see that the next number is a 7. But I'm not going to write a 7 here. I'm going to write an 8. And that's because the number after the 7 is a 6. So that's going to give me 118 if I round it. So we have got 0.118. Okay? And so we're going to do the same thing with the percentage, but with percentage, that's the same as dividing by 100. So if I did 21.8 divided by 100, I could do it that way. And another method is to take the decimal place and move it 2 places to the left. Excuse me, the decimal point. We'd move it 2 places to the left, and that would give us the decimal equivalent of this percentage. So if we go into our tools here and we grab the Math Tools calculator. Alright, and so we're going to see what is 21.8 divided by 100. And so we see that it is 0.218, or 218 thousandths. So from here, we need to figure out which one of these is larger. Now, I like to equate it to money, so I kind of look at the decimal places and compare, if these were money, which one would I rather have in my pocket? And so even, this case we have 3 decimal places, so it might be a little more difficult to do that. So what I like to do is go through and compare place values. And so if I start in my ones place value here, I see I have 0 and 0. Those are equal, so it's not safe for me to make a determination yet which one of these is the larger value. So I'm going to go to the next place value, and so I see I've got a 1 and a 2. Obviously, if we're choosing the larger value, that's going to be this 2 down at the bottom here. And so I now know that this value is larger than this value up here. So the 21.8% is bigger than the 2/17. So when I go back up here, I see I need to make a decision between this greater than symbol, this equal to symbol, or this less than symbol. And so, one way we can do that, some people like to think of this as the alligator mouth. This symbol is the alligator mouth, and it wants to open up and eat the bigger meal. And so that's a good way to think about it too. And if that's the case, which one would it be eating? The 2/17 or the 21.8%? Hopefully you said the 21.8%. It also points at the smaller number. So it opens up to eat this bigger number here and points at the smaller one. And just for a little fun, we'll give it some teeth. Yum. Alright, so Now we need to decide which of these letters is going to fit in here. And since I've already written it up here, I know it's going to eat this bigger value. I just have to match the symbol over here. When I do that, I see that it lines up with letter C. And so I fill in the bubble for C. And there we go. All right, so on this next example, and please, pause the video and call me over if you guys have any questions while you're working through this example. On this next one, I want you to do it on your own, and then I want you to show me your answer. That's going to be this guy right here. So I want you to pause the video while you write it down and work on it, and then after you finish it, show me your answer, and then we can go through the video explanation if you get stuck. All right? Okay, so now we're going to take it one step further. We are going to order these from least to greatest. Now, it's important to really read carefully because sometimes this does not say least to greatest. Sometimes it's going to say greatest to least, and it's going to put things backwards. So it's really important that we're paying attention while we are reading. It's going to be the same step, essentially, though, where I'm going to write each of these in its decimal form. So I'm going to rewrite the originals over here. I've got 5.78 or 5 7/8 hundredths. I've got 55 ninths or 55 over 9. I've got the mixed number 5 and 5/8. And then I've got a percentage, so I've got 54% as well. All right, so I'm going to go through and do the same thing. I'm going to come up with the decimal equivalents of each one. Now, I see in the very beginning 5.78 or 5 7/8 hundredths already in decimal form. All right, and then so I'm taking a look at 55 over 9, and just like in that last example, we figured out that that is just a division problem. So 55 divided by 9. And that gives us 6.11111, but we know that's a 1 repeating, but we're going to round it to 2 decimal places for now. We might need to go back and add more, but for right now we see that it is 6.11. In this case, you see I didn't change this to a 2, because the number after this one right here is below 5. 5 and below, let it go. Or, excuse me, 4 and below, let it go. And we're going to say 5 and above, give it a shove. So one more time, that's 4 and below, let it go. 5 and above, give it a shove. All right? So we see this mixed number here, and if you're using one of the blue calculators, the TI-30s, you might know how to put this number in. But if you're using one of the TI-83s, the bigger graphing calculators, the black ones, you might not know how to do that. On those, we don't actually put in mixed numbers. We're going to write the whole number part down first. We know that the whole number part of this number is 5, because I'm looking at it right here. The part that I don't know is the decimal equivalent to the fraction 5/8. So I'm going to write 5 over 8, because it's a division problem, 5 divided by 8. We'll figure out what that is. That's 0.625. But I know that I'm not going to use this 0 because I have a 5 already. So 5.625. Now, we're going to go ahead and round it to 2 decimal places. So do you think this should be 5.62 or 5.63? Hopefully you said 5.63. Because this is a 5, we remember 5 and above, give it a shove. And so we shove this 2 into a 3. Now, with the percentage, we can either do the move the decimal point over 2 places, or we can do the divide by 100, so we'll show both. If I move it over, decimal point would be there, and I have 0.54. Or if I do 54 divided by 100, I'm also going to end up with 0.54. Alright, so we've got the decimal equivalents of all of these, and now I see I'm going to order it again from least to greatest. And I like to number mine to decide which ones go first. But first we're going to go through and we're going to highlight the place values to compare. Remember, I'm looking for least to greatest, so that's the smallest number first. I'm going through my ones place value. Can I determine which one of these is the smallest from just looking at the ones place value? The answer is yes. Because the 0 is smaller than all of these other numbers, the 5, the 6, and the 5, we can say safely that 54% is the smallest one. So we can either write it here, or we could say that this one is number 1. Alright, so there's 54% as least to greatest. Then I'm going to move on. I see I'm going to compare now 5 and 6 here. I obviously know it's going to be one of these two numbers that starts with 5, but I don't know which one, so I've got to take another place value. And so I'm going to go into the 10th place value. I've got 7 and 6. Can I tell from looking at this number and this number which one is smaller? Hopefully you said yes, and hopefully you know that smaller would be the 5.6, smaller than the 5.7. So again, you can either go through and number 5.63 as number 2, or you can just go ahead and write it as 5.63, or excuse me, we don't want to write that, we want to write the original number, which was 5 and 5/8. All right. So now we go back to the last two numbers that we have left, because we got done this one, we got done this one. We've got 5.78 and 6.11 left. If I'm looking, I know that the 5.78 is going to be smaller than the 6.11. If I'm thinking about it like money, this is $5.78. This one's $6.11. Which one is smaller? $5.78. And so I'm going to write 5.78 next. And then that one is number 3. And obviously by process of elimination, we know that number 4, 55 over 9. And so we're going to write that there. Have we ordered this from least to greatest? We sure have. So I'm going to give you guys another example. Don't forget, you can always reverse the video, pause it, ask questions. Don't get stuck, but I do want to see your answer on this one. Remember to read the instructions carefully. So this is one that you do. So pause the video while you write this down, and then I want to see your answer when you're finished so we can check it. Alright, so one last thing that I wanted to cover with you guys is the idea of negative numbers. We see that some of these have negatives here, and so it's really important to know how those interact with the positive real numbers. And so we're going to do the same steps. We're going to write out our original numbers. Okay, write out the originals. And we're still going to look for those decimal equivalents of these. The thing is, now with these ones, we're going to have negative signs out front. So if I go to my calculator, I see that square root of 17 is 4.123106, blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to, again, go to 2 decimal places. And the important thing here is that I put that negative sign in front. Negative 4.12 or 3. Hopefully you said 2, because the 3 after this is below 5. So 4 and below, let it go, and so we let this 2 stay as a 2. We then see we have 47 over 11. But again, it's really important that we write this negative out there. So negative 4.2. Now should this be a 7 or an 8? We look at the 2 next to it. 4 and below, let it go. We'll leave it as a 7. 4.29 doesn't get easier than that. No negative. And it's already in decimal form. We're good there. And this one, we still have to be careful with the negative, but we do not have to figure out the decimal equivalent because we know it's 4.44. And the reason this does not become a 5 is because if we were to write this next number, it's a 4. But we don't need it for this problem. Alright, so first things first, I'm going to look at negatives. Negatives are always going to be smaller than positives. And so when we're comparing negatives, one thing that's really important to know is that the bigger the number part is, the more negative a number is. And so if I'm looking and I'm comparing, they all have the same ones place value, but this 4 is the largest out of the negatives. That's going to make it the smallest, negative 4.4 repeating. Alright, and then so I know that that one's good, or that's my number 1. Then I'm going through, and contrary to what you were doing before, you know, we're looking at the 2 and the 1 now. Which one is actually smaller? Because of the negatives, that's this guy right here. Alright, so that's negative 47 over 11. Alright, I want you guys to finish this one on your own, and raise your hand and get help if you get stuck.